You are Sint Maarten. You are Sint Maarten.
The URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement, being a political movement, will be hosting a weekly radio program called You Are Sint Maarten, every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Radio Mix 94.7 FM. I myself, Dr. Mercelina, the political leader of URSM, will be hosting this radio program in which current issues, actualities and general topics will be discussed with the people of Sint Maarten. So join us every Wednesday on Radio Mix 94.7 for our radio show You Are Sint Maarten.
You are Sint Maarten. You are Sint Maarten.
Dear people of Sint Maarten, good evening. Welcome to your radio program You Are Sint Maarten on Radio Mix 94.7 FM. As you know, this radio program, You Are Sint Maarten, is actually an initiative from the political movement Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement. And actually, if you pay attention to the abbreviation of Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement, you end up with URSM. And if you now read carefully URSM, the letters, you end up saying You Are Sint Maarten. And that is actually the idea that we got to make a program for the people of this country. And we decided to call this program You Are Sint Maarten, but it's an initiative from the political party Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement. As you know, I am Dr. Mercelina. I'm the surgeon in Sint Maarten Medical Center, serving the people of this country as a surgeon since 1999. And also since 2021, in October, we started and founded this political movement URSM, of which I am the political leader. And we will, with this political movement, contest the upcoming parliamentary elections of country Sint Maarten. As you know, this radio program, You Are Sint Maarten, is an initiative to keep the people of this country informed and involved in political developments, in community issues, and informing the people about topics that we really think the people should be well aware of. Most of the time we have in our program an invitee, but actually today, as the leader of the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement, I decided that I'm going not to invite a invitee for today, but just touch base with my people of Sint Maarten on a few topics. The first one is that I wanted once more to enlighten what makes actually this URSM a different political party than the rest of the political parties in Sint Maarten. And afterward, as you see, I will enlighten the topic of autonomy, where URSM stands for, and I would like to take some time to just inform the people, have a saying, throw some light on the concept of autonomy in general and what that does mean for country Sint Maarten. Once you touch base on autonomy, you will realize that you have to touch base on a concept term that they call the democratic deficit. And I thought, you know what, once we discuss the autonomy, I will also give some explanation about a term that repeatedly falls in discussions, and that is the democratic deficit that Sint Maarten, country Sint Maarten, is experiencing in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And I'm not sure if we will make it, but if there is still sometimes left over, I will disclose some visions that the URSM has to actually fortify the autonomy that we deserve. So, first of all, let's talk a little about the URSM. As you know, the URSM stands for inclusion. URSM respects and embraces diversity. As you know, in our country, we are represented by 120 different nationalities. I think that can be a great example for the world how 120 different nationalities can live peacefully next to each other. It must be an example for the world, and I think this is something very, very exemplars of our country, Sint Maarten. On the other hand, when you have 120 different nationalities living together, it can sometimes put the country identity under tension. It can also challenge the patriotism of the country. But we do believe that with the inclusion concept, we believe that that can be the only tool to promote a unified opinion and a unified sentiment on country identity and country patriotism. So we really believe from the URSM in the concept of inclusion and diversity. We believe strongly that social cohesion and pride of a country are the pillars to establish a uniform country identity. Further, the URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten movement, stands for governing with integrity, with principles, with morals, and of course, with transparency. We do believe that we in government should be open for the people to have a good view on how we are taking care of their business. We from the URSM, we really believe that we are completely aware also of the socio-economic status of this country. I every time again repeat the following, what I'm going to say, and why do I say that every time again is because the people nowadays in government taking care of our business are going to the government building and to the parliament building as if it's business as usual. And actually, in this country, there is a high poverty rate. We have 29% of our population lives under the general poverty line. But what is actually the definition of having a household in poverty? For us, the definition of a poverty line is a household that has its finance under the $850 per month. So if the whole household is being managed with a budget of $850 per month, we really believe that families, households under the $850 for the whole family, for everybody living in that house, we think that that is really too low to adhere to the financial economic demands of each individual in this country. We have, as I just said, 29% of our populace lives under the poverty norm. That is actually, if you think about it, it's average 1 out of each 3 persons in this country live under poverty circumstances. I think that is very alarming. Further, we have a high illiteracy rate in this country. We have an illiteracy rate between the 6 to 8%. If you compare that, for example, to the Netherlands, the illiteracy rate in the Netherlands is a little under the 1%, while our illiteracy rate averages between the 6 and the 8%. A very alarming phenomenon in our community is also the low education level of our community. Actually, 42% of our populace does not have a secondary school education. That means actually that it's almost 1 out of each 2 citizens in this country did not finalize a secondary school education. Further, I do believe that our country has a too large, huge pool of illegals. Average, we have approximately 15% of our society consists of illegals. Once more, the URSM is not against illegals. For sure not. We are not against humankind. But I think still, if we want to have a responsible household for country Sint Maarten, we should realize that the amount of illegals in this country is average 15% of the populace. And this 15%, that is a high amount, does bring its challenges for a autonomous country. We have also a very high uninsured part of our community concerning healthcare. I'm a doctor, as you know. I'm daily confronted with health issues of people. And what we realize in the hospital is that we are treating a huge amount of uninsured people. And we do believe that if we want a balanced society, we will have to do something with the large amount of uninsured persons in this community. Because at the end of the day, if you are uninsured and you have an urgent medical issue, I do believe you have the human right to get the necessary care that is demanded at that particular moment. But on the other side, for us to have a balanced financial situation for country Sint Maarten, I do believe we will have to think on a solution to decrease actually the pool of uninsured persons in our community. We have also a high unemployment rate in our community. The unemployment rate averages 17% of the populace compared to the unemployment rate in the Netherlands that is approximately 4%. We have also a very high youth unemployment in this country. It is at this particular moment, especially after the pandemic, it's 18%. And just to compare with, for example, the Netherlands, in the Netherlands, the youth unemployment is average 7%. And we are by, as I said, the 18%. One that I have great respect for, but I'm very, very worried about, is the female-headed households in this country. That means that females are the ones financially responsible for the household. And in this case, it's 38% of our community. And in the Netherlands, it's 12% of the households are female-headed. But in Sint Maarten, as I said, it's 38%. So by explaining you these figures, you realize that the URSM is very, very aware of the socio-economic problems, the cry of the people of this country. Further, the URSM is for sure a political movement that wants to guarantee the citizens that we will be sure to guardian against discrimination that is based on gender, on race, on nationality, on religion, on sexual preference, on disability or on age, because we really believe that every God's creation deserves a good life without being discriminated. The URSM is a political movement, but what we want from the URSM also is that it's not only a political movement in the period just before elections. As you know, traditionally wise, all of a sudden you start hearing about political parties because they need votes, and then you see all the political parties running to the neighborhoods and talking with the people to convince them to vote for them. while on the other side, the URSM is a political party that wants to be alive, wants to be participating in the daily life of the people and stay in contact with the people year in, year out to make sure that we are realizing the socio-economic issues and developments that are going on in our country. We are also a very, very organized political movement. We have a lot of committees that are actually working on different topics that we think that once we get in government, we will unfold our dossier of all the preparatory work that we did before election, so we don't lose time and know exactly what the URSM wants to do for the people of Sint Maarten. And what stands strong for the URSM is that we of the URSM always want to put the people, the country, above self. What you see most of the time is once people get elected, they go to the parliament building or they go to the government building, and then all of a sudden they disconnect from the people because at that particular moment they don't need them anymore for their votes, and they just do what they want to do. And the people outside there that put them in a chair to take care of their business are forgotten. And then you see that there is an enormous disconnection between the people that are suffering outside there and those that are in office. And we from the URSM want constantly to be in touch with the people of our country. So that is actually the first topic that I wanted to discuss with you, is just once more to highlight the differences between the URSM as a political movement and other political parties, that you outside here realize for sure what this URSM stands for. The URSM stands also for a full-fledged autonomy for country Sint Maarten. Everybody nowadays are using the term heading towards independence, and we from the URSM believes that there is much to be done with country Sint Maarten before we can touch base on the topic of independence. We from the URSM are working towards a constituent state in the kingdom based on a political, democratic equivalency and equality without a democratic deficit. That is, of course, a whole long sentence that I am sharing with you. But at the end of the day is we want to have a more balanced share in the kingdom government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And we want, of course, being a constituent state, we will want to assume more responsibility and work towards a full-fledged autonomy. Because on paper, if you analyze the Charter of the Kingdom, we are an autonomous country, but in practice, if you see our relationship with the other countries in the kingdom, especially the Netherlands, we realize that we do not have the autonomy as a country as it's prescribed in the Charter of the Kingdom. And we do believe that the autonomy that is described in the Charter of the Kingdom, we do believe that we have to make it a realistic concept in practice, what it is not at this particular moment. But first of all, we will have to talk about the pillars that makes a country autonomous. First of all, we want to talk about an autonomous country that we think we are. I can assure you that until today, after 11 years of being, actually 12 years since 10 of being an autonomous country, we do not have our own vision on education for this autonomous country. We do not have a vision and idea about the level of healthcare that we want for our autonomous country, Sint Maarten. We never thought about a financial model to finance our health care while we pretend that we live in an autonomous country. We do not have a vision, and we do not have a promising policy concerning our garbage collection and our garbage processing. We still do not know what type of monetary unit. Do we want to have a dollar? Do we want to stay with our Netherlands Antilles guilders? Or do we want to go to the euro? We never thought about that, and we think in our mind that we are an autonomous country. For example, also, we don't have even a vision about the recruitment of professionals that each autonomous country should have to help the nation building of this country. The professional treasury has to be something strong if you want to give evolution to an autonomous country like what we have in mind for Sint Maarten. And of course, we never thought about a vision on social security for the people of this country. Even we never thought about a well-balanced, broad-carried tax model for an autonomous country that we think that we have. So before I go into a more specific explanation of this autonomy for country Sint Maarten, considering the time that is flying, we're going to take a small break and we'll be back in a few minutes. Dear people of Sint Maarten, welcome to the second half of our radio program, You Are Sint Maarten. As I said in my introduction in the first part of this radio program, I said that I would touch base on actually the characteristics of the URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten movement, that everybody knows what actually makes this URSM so unique compared to other political parties. Secondly, I said in the introduction that I would speak and highlight the concept of autonomy, and that is where we stayed by the end of the first half of our program. I'm going to start again with this autonomy, saying that there is a lot to be said about this autonomy. As I said, this autonomy, we have it on paper for country Sint Maarten, but still I think in practice we are not a full-fledged autonomous country. But when are we then a full-fledged autonomous country? What should be at place for us to be an autonomous country? I think there are a few things that I can say that makes a country quite autonomous. First of all, I do believe that we do need an effective, well-organized, and a financial healthy utility system for Sint Maarten. If you look at our GEBE that we have now, there are still some improvements that can be done for this utility company of Sint Maarten that I do believe I should be grateful to, because GEBE does a lot of good for us on a daily basis too. But still, I think we should improve and we should empower more this GEBE in a good way, make it a financially stable institution that will really offer Sint Maarten a pillar to stimulate the autonomy of the country. I also believe that what makes a country real autonomous is if you have a well-organized, effective, and reliable telecommunication system for the country. A third one for me is the airport. As you know, since Hurricane Irma in 2017, you realize that until now we do not have our airport back at place. So how can't we have an airport at place and we want to say that we are a autonomous country? Another one is our harbor. We have to organize our harbor in a way that it will serve the neighboring Caribbean islands and also, of course, serve in a great way the cruise industry for country Sint Maarten. A next one that I do believe has to be in place to call your country autonomous is, of course, your healthcare and specifically your hospital. I think you know that I'm a doctor working in the hospital. We are trying now to build a new hospital, but still there is a lot to be done to crystallize this beautiful concept that actually we have for country Sint Maarten. And of course, we have to also think on the waste management for country Sint Maarten, because we do need a sustainable, effective waste collection and waste processing system to call ourselves autonomous. We have to make sure that we can take care of our own garbage. And if we cannot do that, we can impossible call ourselves a autonomous country. So actually, the idea is for us to have the pillar of utility. We must to fortify the pillar of telecommunication. We have to fortify the pillar of airport. We have to strengthen the pillar of our harbor. We have to, of course, fortify and stabilize our pillar of healthcare, especially the hospital care. We have to organize the pillar of waste management. And of course, the last one that we cannot forget is education. Is very, very, very important. Once you have those roots deep in the soil, these pillars implanted deep in the soil, there is no reason anymore to fear the winds coming in the direction of Sint Maarten. So we will have to make sure that we have a strong pillar of utility, telecommunication, airport, harbor, hospital, waste management, and of course our education at place for us to make sure that we are autonomous enough to take care of our own people. There are other issues that I do believe can contribute to the evolution of making Sint Maarten in reality, in a sense, an autonomous country. I do believe that we will have to think about the monetary unit for country Sint Maarten. Are we going to stay with the Netherlands until it's guilders, or are we going to work on dollarization of our economy, or are we going to make use of the euro that actually we have on the French side already? And actually, every year again we talk about one people, one island. This is the moment to think if maybe perhaps we will have to go in the direction of the euro, because actually half of our island is already using the euro as a monetary unit for their people. And the question is if that will benefit us if we make use of the euro on our side of the island too. Another thing that I think should make a great difference for country Sint Maarten if we could institutionalize a national bank, or with other words, a national bank for country Sint Maarten. I do believe that people have the right to have a mortgage, to buy a property, to buy a house, to live in peacefully their life. But if the commercial banks, the percentage for the interest rate that they offer, if it's too high, the people will never be able to get a loan, get a mortgage to pay off their house. And I do believe if we can come with a national bank, called also a development bank, I think we can offer the people of this country a mortgage at a low interest rate, with an interest rate of about 1.5–2%, compared to the 6–7–8% that we have nowadays from the commercial banks. And I think that will help the people of this country to purchase a house and actually leave it for the next generation further to enjoy. I also believe in a U.S. pre-clearance for two reasons. I think it's going to give the country an enormous economic injection, and on the other side is going to stabilize the political the dance floor of country Sint Maarten. And I think that the presence of the United States here will also give some political stability in the Caribbean. Concerning education, I spoke also about education as a a necessary pillar to be at place for us to be an autonomous country. You have to realize that education is a precondition to arrive at a well-educated labor force. That is an absolute must. Further education is the basis for economic growth. And third, education is the basis for good living condition and also for good opportunities for everyone. So I do believe that we have to work on our education of our country, and at the end of the day, a country can be autonomous if the country has his professional treasury to carry on the concept of autonomy and have a respectable government for its country. That is actually what I wanted to say about the autonomy of our country. One more thing I would like to highlight today is the democratic deficit. In my introduction, I said that the URSM would like to promote a realistic, in practice, autonomy for country Sint Maarten, but we would not like to have in this autonomy the experience of a democratic deficit. This term, democratic deficit, is very often used here in the political arena, and actually I would like to explain that once more, is the following. We are part of a kingdom of the Netherlands. We are 4 countries in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, being Aruba, Curaçao, Sint Maarten, and the Netherlands. Actually, the Netherlands has its own government, and each other country, Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten, have their own government too. But next to that, there is a kingdom government, and that kingdom government has its own Council of Ministers called the Kingdom Council of Ministers. But if the construction now of the Kingdom Council of Ministers is that you have represented in that Kingdom Council of Ministers, you have all the ministers of the Netherlands represented in that Kingdom Council. But next to that, Aruba has only 1 representation, Curaçao has 1 representation, and Sint Maarten has 1 representation in the form of the minister plenipotentiary that represents actually the Prime Minister in the Kingdom Council of Ministers. So, for example, if you have 20 ministers representing the Netherlands, you have still 3 more that adds to make it 23 ministers in total in the Kingdom Council of Ministers. But seeing only the numbers that we are represented only with 3 ministers and the Netherlands with 20 ministers, for example, that makes it a deficit in decision making in favor of the smaller countries in the kingdom. And we believe that should change. Of course, the Netherlands is the biggest of all the countries in the kingdom. Of course, the Netherlands is the most experienced country in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Of course, the Netherlands has the largest population compared to the other countries in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And of course, the Netherlands has the highest gross domestic product, the GDP, of all the countries in the kingdom. But these advantages that we see do not legitimate the fact that the Netherlands should be the one taking command to the democratic control of the entire kingdom. Once more, these advantages that I just mentioned are not legitimate reasons for the Netherlands to command the democratic control of the entire government. There is something very, very important also for each country. And I think that we have to consider what makes a country a country. It's not always the size of the population. It's not always the size of the continent itself. No, a country is also built on the basis of pride, on the basis of dignity, on the basis of country identity and patriotism, and also on the basis of autonomy. And I do believe that pride, dignity, country identity, patriotism, and autonomy should never be challenged under a democratic deficit. Sint Maarten does not have a say, for example, in the legislative and executive branch of the kingdom government. The representatives of each other country in the kingdom government, being Curaçao, Sint Maarten and Aruba, they do not have a voting right in decision-making in the Kingdom Council of Ministers. And I think all this contributes to a democratic deficit in the system. The cause of Sint Maarten having the feeling that it has not attained a full measure of self-government is directly related, to my belief, to the status the country attributes to the kingdom government. Also, the interpretation Sint Maarten gives to the constitutional structure in the kingdom. And also the Dutch Council of Ministers, who have no political affiliation with the voters of the constituent states, being Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten, they are given the powers to rule and overrule the governments and parliaments of the other three smaller constituent states, being Curaçao, Sint Maarten, and Aruba. And I do believe there is a lot of work to be done to see if we can change the whole charter, the whole constitution, in a way that we can take care of this invalidating democratic deficit that Sint Maarten is experiencing. I do believe that Sint Maarten has to self-evaluate how it is going to fulfill its task when it comes to the autonomy of the country. Further, I decided that I would like to, as a doctor of course, to also speak a little about the healthcare of to speak about the finance of the healthcare of country Sint Maarten. In the past, we were very, very interested in the concept of a national health insurance system for country Sint Maarten. I have always been very critical with this, because for you to have a broad, carried financial system to regulate the financing of healthcare, you will have to adhere to a few conditions that is absolutely necessary to have a broad-based, carried system that stays reliable and stays sustainable for the people of the country. First of all, if you want to speak about the national health insurance, you will have to deal with a rich country. Until now, Sint Maarten is not a rich country. Don't forget at the end of the day that we are a country now that have a debt of 1.3 billion. So that is a lot of money. Further, if you want to speak about a national health insurance, you will have to have a well-organized community. And I do believe that everybody agrees with me that Sint Maarten is, until now, unfortunately, not a well-organized community. We will have to have for a national health insurance system a very low percentage of illegals. And also we will have to have a very low rate of undocumented. To be in a sustainable financial system, I do not think it's possible if we are situated in a hurricane belt. And in this case, Sint Maarten experiences every year again the challenges of a threatening of a hurricane. So we will have to realize that we are very vulnerable just because we are situated in the hurricane belt. Further, we have to have a well-organized border control if we will want a sustainable financial system for the healthcare of country Sint Maarten. And everybody agrees with me that until today, there is a lot to be done to organize our border control of country Sint Maarten. And further, we have to have a large population to keep this national health system in financing going. And our populace is a relatively small population. So actually you do not have enough people to contribute to premiums to keep the national health insurance sustainable. So we will have to think very seriously about how we're going to solve that problem. And to have a sustainable national health insurance system, you will have to have a low poverty rate in this country. And as I said in the beginning, we have in this community a high poverty rate, and as I said, 29-30% of our population, the people of this country, live under the poverty line of this country. And I do believe that that is a something that is going to work against a sustainable national health insurance for the country. But we will have to think about a solution that will fit the organization of this community. And something that a lot of people forget is there is a big difference in healthcare that you can service a community that lives on an island compared to the healthcare that you want to service people that lives on a continent. And I will give you, for example, a example. What I mean with this is, for example, if you live in the Netherlands and you want to go from one village to bring that specific person to an academic hospital, it will take you probably 1,200 euros with an ambulance to transport the patient from your small village hospital to a big academic center. If we decide here in Sint Maarten that we want to airlift a patient, for example, to a big medical institution in, for example, Colombia or Panama, you realize that the moment you pick up the phone and you organize only the transportation of this individual patient, it's going to cost community average between $25,000 to $30,000. And everybody talks every time, yeah, just send the patient away. And of course, I want the best for my patients, but every time I pick up the phone and order an air ambulance, I realize that it's going to cost the community $25,000 to $30,000 alone to get the patient in Panama or Colombia, and I even did not talk yet about the cost, the medical costs related to the treatment and stay of the patient in Panama or Colombia. So we are an island, and an island healthcare system is always, for example, with this example that I'm giving you, is always more expensive than the healthcare on a continent in a big country. So, dear people, I try to explain you as last the challenges of a finance system for the health care for country Sint Maarten, but I'm committed to make it work in the nearby future. I hope that I have given you some explanation about the URSM. We spoke about the concept of autonomy. We spoke today about the democratic deficit. And I also, at the end, gave you some insights in the national health insurance that can be a big challenge for this country based on the examples that I gave during my explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a very interesting radio program today. I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to have you back in our radio program next week, Wednesday, from 6 to 7 p.m. on Radio Mix 94.7 FM. Have a great night.